there with the green screen behind him. We will be spotlighting him in a moment so that he will be the biggest picture, because we want you to be able to see what he's holding up when he talks about his treasures. John is a career banker, and he's been posted around the world: Calgary, Toronto, Tokyo, London, New York, to name a few. He is retired now, and he does live in our Oakville area, which we're excited to have him locally. He is a member of various coin clubs in Canada and the US. He specializes in rare coins and currency, and he is a very sought-after guest speaker, and he is so kind and generous with his time to share with us to be here today. So virtual round of applause for the lovely John. Thanks for being here, John, and Nicole will spotlight you, and you can go ahead and start. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's just an honor to be here with you again, Julie, and it's a gorgeous day out, so I can't think of anything better to do than to talk about treasure today. So it's one of my favorite things. As Julie said, my name is John Probert. I've traveled around the world. My father was a history professor, and I was a banker, so I've kind of combined the two professions, and now I'm what I would call a professional collector, junk collector, treasure hunter, and bringer of happiness to many homes that I thoroughly enjoy. My mission statement, if I had one, was to prevent some of these guys that travel around through hotels and try and buy things for ridiculously cheap prices. It disturbs me to no end. I don't want to name the firm. I'm sure you've seen some of the mailings that they've sent out. And it basically breaks my heart to see what some of the prices that they've paid people over the years for some of their treasures. So if there's something I can do in that regard that prevents some of that, then it makes me feel a little bit happy. What I thought I would do is outline some of the stuff that I'm going to go through today. I'm going to go through a list of some of the favorite things that I do collect, and I did bring some samples along to show off. And the other area I want to address is passing collectibles and treasures on to the generation under us. You know, a few points for consideration. As I say, I won't give any advice on what to do, but I do have a few suggestions of what the generation under us likes to collect and what they don't like to collect. And then there's also the part about selling collectibles and treasures, whether you do it through auction, private sales, and whatnot. There's a few points on safety I'd like to bring up, especially for our seniors nowadays. And then the last thing I'd like to mention is some of the opinions that I have on what I think might be worth something more in the future, and some things that might be worth a little bit less in the future. Just some current trends that I'm seeing. And again, my advice is free, my opinions are free. So let's get started. One of my favorite things to collect and to search out are coins. I absolutely love it. I love the history of it. I love everything about it. It's a great way of educating youngsters on different countries around the world. And some of the things that I've found over the years, this is a gold maple, and this is a loonie dollar. One of them's worth $1, and one of them's worth $2,300. And it's amazing how they so look alike. So these are some of the things that I've actually seen on private deals when I've gone into people's houses. They've had a gold maple leaf sitting in their change dish. And it's just amazing how often people can have buried treasure right in their house, and they're not even sure that they have it sitting there. This is a story, if anybody met me about 3 or 4 years ago when I did a presentation with Julie and Nicole at the center. When I first moved to Oakville, I would go around to garage sales and see different things. And I still remember the day. It was 2011. I was out driving around, and a beautiful elder lady had a table set up out in front of her house with a bunch of treasures on it. She had glasses, she had pillows, she had a 50-cent table. She also had this on her 50-cent table. If anybody can see this, it clearly says 2 ounces. It's 2 ounces of pure gold that was sitting on her 50-cent table. So I saw it from a distance because gold stands out like a sore thumb. So I walked up to the table, put my hand over it, and then I went back to the lady and I said, "Ma'am, you have this on your 50-cent table." I said, "Do you have any idea what it's worth?" And she said, "Son, it's 50 cents. Everything on the table is 50 cents. I said, "Ma'am, I'm going to give you $3,700 for this piece of gold." It was a staggering moment. I think she nearly fell back, but that is the kind of stuff that I like to prevent that happens out there. So if I can at least give some education on some of the treasure and some of the things that are out there, it makes me feel good. Some of the other things I collect, old watches. It's amazing the workmanship that went into this old watch. It's an automatic Tissot. It's not worth a great deal, $25 or $30. But the inside of this watch has got more things going on than any other watch that's built nowadays. So things like that I find interesting. Again, they're not worth a great deal. It's just that the workmanship that went into it, it doesn't deserve to be thrown into the trash. As Julie mentioned before, I was a currency trader for many years, and one of the things I love to collect is old paper money. This is an old $20 Bahama note, currently worth in foreign exchange market about $20. Well, it's actually a pretty rare note, and this gentleman only a couple of weeks ago had it in a bunch of old newspapers. It's worth about $500 today. It's kind of a rare note. He didn't think it was worth anything. He was actually prepared to throw it in the garbage. So he was kind of happy with that. Some of the other things that I found in my travels, as everybody knows, Canada has a Governor General. This is called a Governor General Medal. So the Governor General, a couple of times a year, will give out medals for Canadians that have done great things. In this particular case, it was somebody in 1967 that had done particularly well at a sporting event. Also, that was preparing to go into the garbage. So it's just amazing what can be out there. And as I say, I thoroughly enjoy helping people find things like this. Now this one's a little strange, and this one came out of nowhere. But this is a vintage bottle of wine from 1977. Most likely it's gone bad, but it doesn't matter. Again, this was on its way into the garbage. It was going to the recycle, where I think the beer store will give you 20 cents deposit for it. It's a 1977 French wine. Some of this can be worth a great deal sealed, because collectors still keep the wine as long as it's sealed, and they'd like to display it on their shelf. Again, not worth a particular amount, but it just seems a shame that it would end up in a landfill as opposed to being displayed, which is something I kind of like. Now this is a recent acquirement, and it's very heavy. This is a big chunk of nickel that came from about a mile underground north of Sudbury. It's called the Crean Hill Mine. And this was what they were celebrating, was a big chunk of nickel that they had found, and they made a plaque and they put it on here, and it's a huge chunk of raw nickel. Now this isn't worth a great deal, but I just thought it was very cool. It's a part of Canadian history, and the fact that this was probably created by a meteorite and was found about a mile underground is very cool. Not worth a great deal, but to me, I think it's awesome. Canadian silver dollars, one of my favorite things to collect. There's two kinds. There's this kind here, which is worth about $1, and then there's this kind here, which is worth about $25. Canada stopped making silver coins in 1967. Prior to 1967, all Canada coins, from the dime up to the silver dollar, were considered very collectible. People started putting them away, especially after the US discontinued their silver coinage in 1964. So what happened is all the Canadian silver coins got sucked up and basically put away. So when you're going through change and when you're discovering old change buckets in your house and whatnot, keep an eye out. Any Canadian coin pre-1967 is going to have silver in it, and it's definitely worth more than face value. Now, the other awkward part about collecting is I get an awful lot of calls about stamp collections. Stamps are very tricky. Everybody seems to think that their stamp collections are worth a lot of money, and unfortunately, it's not true. What's happened is the generation under us doesn't collect stamps. They don't know what stamps are. They have never licked a stamp. They've never sent a letter. When they pay bills, they do it on their phone, not like we did 30 years ago, where we would put a stamp on a letter and send it in. They don't. They have no idea what they're for. They'll never have an interest in them. And if you try to explain to them what a stamp collection is, they'll just look at you with kind of a glazed look and be immediately bored and get back on their iPad. So unfortunately, people that have collected stamps, it's very bad news. It's not good. There are a few exceptions. Canadian stamps pre-1900, from 1860 to 1900, can be worth some good money. They have to be absolutely perfect. They have to be mint, and those are considered pretty rare. But unfortunately, for stamp collectors, the news is not great. The trend is probably not going to hold up very well in the next 20 years. So I've always said to people, if you have a stamp collection, if you can find somebody in your family that's interested, please pass it down. Now that said, I have found some stamp collections which are worth a great deal, and because they still have stamps in there that are perfectly usable. So when you are going through your stamp collection, see if there's any in there that you can still use. If you flip them over to the one side and it's shiny, you'll know that it's still good. And you can perfectly well use those, because I know guys like me, I still mail stuff in, I still send stuff out at Christmas time, so they're still fine. Other items to keep an eye out for that I think are starting to creep up a little bit more in value are, believe it or not, pocket watches. I collect men's pocket watches. I think they're very, very interesting. They're similar a little bit to this one in that they've got an extremely mechanical system in the back, which I find fascinating. Most of the time, pocket watches are found, they're often broken, which is a bit of a sad situation because unfortunately nowadays there's not really anybody around that can repair them. It's kind of like a dying trade, but they're still very good. So if you do find pocket watches in your collections, you definitely want to check them out. Again, there's two kinds. There's the kind that are gold plated, and it'll say on the back either gold filled or it'll say guaranteed for 20 years. If you see a mark that says 14K, 18K, and very rarely 22K, you'll know that you found something extremely good. And that would be a very good thing to keep or pass down, or at least have checked out. The other item that I do collect, and I'm very reluctant to chat about this, is military items. Often people will pass down military items to kids and then they'll immediately go out and sell them. So in Canada, we've had two interesting wars in our past, World War I and World War II, where Canadians participated in both wars. Some of the military items from those wars, especially World War I, Canada, can be worth a great deal. It's an awkward thing to talk about because most of the time family, I feel, should keep that stuff, but often it does get kind of passed away as junk. Well, some of it can be worth a great deal. When it comes to weapons, I don't do weapons, I don't do bullets, I don't do anything like that. There are people that can and will do that happily. I'm not the guy for that. The other area I want to talk about is passing things down, what is good to pass down and what is not. Obviously, anything military being passed down to the generation under us probably isn't wise. I would urge people to pass down pictures, photographs, memories of grandparents, things like that I think are great. But passing down other items of a military nature, I don't think is such a great idea. Passing down pocket watches that a grandparent may have owned, especially if you can find one that's engraved with somebody's name on it, I think is a fantastic idea. Just make sure whoever you're passing it down to isn't going to take it out and have it what we call scrapped. And scrap means that you take it and you get the metal value for something that is a historical heirloom. So things like that I kind of discourage, and I don't like to see it. It does happen, it is unfortunate, but make sure if you do pass something down to your grandchildren or even further down the line, that they have a passionate interest. And the one thing that I regret not asking my grandparents is a little bit more about their life. So make sure that when you pass something down, pass along the story to them as well. I think it's really, really important that a grandfather owned this watch, he was in a war, he worked on the railway, he did this, he did that, because it's amazing how much you don't think that they're listening, but they are. And I regret not asking my grandparents a little bit more about their lives, because let's face it, they probably had it a little bit tougher than we did. So I just think it's an interesting way of passing down living history. Selling privately. If you do find something that you're interested in selling, I think that you need to really, really consider deeply how you want to go about doing that. Especially with, today, nowadays, with the health situation being what it is. Do you want to have strangers come in your house? Probably not. Do you want to send something to an auction? Well, that's not a bad idea. And if you do that, then it's fine. Find a reputable auction house. And Julie can certainly recommend some. I can certainly recommend some. And they will take a percentage, but it is a very, very good way of selling off unwanted items. You will take a risk. It might go for a lot. It might go for a little. But in my situation, I've done okay with that. And it is kind of fun to watch too, because they usually have an expiry date on when the auction is, and you can see it live nowadays being auctioned. It's kind of interesting. Having people to your house, I just don't recommend. And I don't think Julie or Nicole would either. I think in this day and age, with security being what it is, and safety being what it is, I just don't recommend it. Now, if you do decide you want to sell privately and you have antiques, there are several that I can recommend and Julie can recommend. Again, I have no profit motive in any of this whatsoever. My goal, and as I said, my mission statement, was just to help people find homes for the treasures, to help people find treasures, and to help people educate themselves about treasures, which I think is just fantastic. Again, it's the history of money, basically. And some of the things that I have found have just been fascinating in Oakville, and some of the stories that I've heard from people have absolutely been fascinating. And I will probably end up doing this until the day I die. So when I do die, I highly urge people to come to my garage sale, because there will be some fantastic bargains here and some great treasure. Thank you so much.
That's awesome, John. I think I had a story that you told about an antique, was it a vase that you found at, it was being passed down after Mom had passed, and the kids were arguing about who was going to get it. Was that you?
That was probably Jed. Jed's had
Jed.
several of those stories before. I have heard some really, really happy ending stories, and I have heard some terrifically horrible stories. As I say, my specialty is foreign paper money, foreign currency. And the story that still keeps me awake to this day is a teller at a certain bank in Oakville had taken in 5 1935 $100 notes at face value, worth $500 face value, and deposited to this lady's account. Those notes are so rare, they're not even in the book. I can only estimate roughly their value being somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000. That was a heartbreaking story to hear. Perhaps more for me than the lady, because she didn't know. Mm-hmm. But still, it pays to have some things checked out. You know, sometimes it's going to be a great story, and sometimes it's not going to be a great story. Sometimes people think that, well, maybe this $2.50 gold coin is worth $2.50, as the lady told me last Saturday. Well, it's actually worth about $300. So things like that are definitely worth checking out. If you have something that you think is good, do some research. Your computer is free. Google will have plenty of answers. And if Google doesn't satisfy it, there's plenty of other resources to check out. And as I say, if you are going to pass down heirlooms, if you are going to pass down something of what you think is extreme value, make sure that you at least tell that person what you think it is, what you think it's worth. Write a story. It doesn't cost anything to write some paper. When I'm often called into houses to look at things, I'll see notes in there, and I love to see that. That means that somebody took the time to say, well, this watch here was given to somebody and we paid $100 for it in 1955. At least it's a reference point of something to go on, as opposed to just throwing a bunch of change in a dish. You know, throwing a bunch of what they don't know is a $2,300 coin into a change dish, which could easily end up at Tim Hortons in the wrong hands. So things like that I find are interesting. Again, there's a huge gap between education and value, and I'm trying to narrow that as best I can.
Now, if I were to try and put you on the spot, could you tell us your favorite find? Like what your most, in your opinion, one of your most remarkable discoveries might be?
This one made me feel the best. It was a lady that needed the money, and if she needed the money that I gave her, much more than the 50 cents she had on this. I think she's kind of since passed away, because I've seen the house sell and all sorts of things. But this was a great story, and it's one I like to tell often, because it exactly captures what I'm trying to do. And that is, if you've got something you think is worth 50 cents and it might not be, or if you have something that's worth $5,000 and it might not be, at least get an opinion on it.
Excellent.
This is my favorite.
Awesome. Thank you, John. So what I want to do now, everybody, is we have had some of you, we've got about 8 items that have been pre-registered. Now, keep in mind, John's advice, very kindly, there's no charge for his advice, but also I'm not going to ask you to ask him specifics about value per se. Everything he's saying today is just general information that you can continue to pursue further after our talk today, okay? So I'm going to ask Nicole if you maybe unpin John. And I'm going to start with, I hope I say your name right, Doe Rouse. Doe, I know you have a couple of items that you would like to show to John and the rest of our group today. And we'd love for you to have a chance to take yourself off of mute so that you can show us what you've got there.
Oh, okay. I only bought the one item with me right now.
That's okay.
and I don't care about monetary value. Where am I? Can you see me? It's a hand-blown glass rolling pin.
Doe, I'm just going to stop you there for 1 second. I don't know that everybody can see what Doe is showing. So on your own screen, if you touch your screen or move your mouse, the top right-hand corner should have a button that says View. If you click the View button and you put it in Gallery View, you'll see everybody. If you put it in Speaker View, you'll see the person that's talking.
I haven't yet. Sorry, I'm on an iPad.
Okay, do you see it in Gallery View, Doe?
Gallery View now.
Perfect. Okay, you can hold it up now and everybody should be able to see it.
Can you see that?
Yes.
Oh, okay. It's a hand-blown glass rolling pin. It has a silver 3-penny piece inside, and it's dated 1908. My grandmother got this from I don't know where, and for years it hung like this on a hook. It had butcher twine around here. It hung on a hook in the pantry, and it was used every week. My grandmother used it, my mother used it, I have used it, and it's sentimental to me because we've all used it. The whole family used it, and I can't believe that it came from England. It traveled to Malta with me. It traveled back to England, came to Canada, and here we are. So this is my treasure, one of my treasures.
I think that's just fantastic. I hope, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
I think that's great. More than likely, I'm considering that may have been a wedding gift. To give a it's called a threepenny bit inside that rolling pin, which would have been made obviously in a hand-blown factory. It's a 1908 threepenny bit, so it is 925 silver, just so you know. Usually threepenny or 6 pence, 6 p's, were often given as wedding presents. But the fact that this is put into a rolling pin makes me think more than likely it was a wedding gift in that year of 1908. So if you can track your family's history and see if anybody was married or perhaps an anniversary in 1908, it is more than likely that.
No, it wasn't in our family. My grandmother obtained it from where I don't know. She worked for a lot of people. She had a very hard life. She just had a very difficult life, younger life. And she worked for other people. She was a house cleaner. She scrubbed floors. She did anything to keep a family. And somebody gave her this. I don't know who it was. So it was not like our family. It just came from my grandmother.
Well, I think it's a great thing. And if you can find somebody in your family to pass that down to, and if you don't mind, write down the story that you just told me, just even if it's in point form, jot it down in a little notebook and box that up nicely, because I don't ever want to see that threepenny bit hitting air. I want it to stay sealed up just as it is. And that is a very cool story. So just jot down, it's a threepenny bit, as the English would say. That thing has lived through World War I, World War II, and almost 113 years of history to it. So I think it is very cool. We know it's 113 years old because we know there's a 1908 threepenny bit in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent find.
Thank you.
Now, Doe, sorry, Doe, I was going to say, do you use it? I would be so scared I would drop it or crack it.
Well, to be honest with you, I now live with my daughter and she has it. We do not use it very often because, like you say, we're scared of breaking it.
Yeah, I bet.
So it's kept in a special place. But yeah.
That's
so
amazing.
I do have my other piece downstairs, so I will release myself now. And if you have time and you would like to see it, I'll go and get it.
Wonderful. So just pop yourself on mute, my dear, and then I'll move on to our next person. And if we can come back to you, we certainly will. So I have Kathy Mcquinlin, who has 2 toy items. Kathy, would you like to take yourself off of mute?
Okay. All right. I have, my mother was born in Newfoundland. And so there weren't any big stores or factories or anything there. And I have a couple of toys that were hers when she was a baby, from what I understand. So they're at least, my mother's since passed, so they're at least 93 years old. I don't know if they're worth anything, but I just thought it was interesting, the type of toy that she would have had, because this certainly is not baby friendly. It's metal.
No, it's amazing how tough the babies were back then. Is there any mark or stamp on it, or does it say where it was made anywhere on it?
This one says made in China.
Okay.
And there were a lot of Chinese who did immigrate to Newfoundland, oddly enough, in those days. This says nothing. It looks like it would have stuck on something. Just kind of.
Well, you'll be happy to know that the toy market is extremely strong right now. I don't know, it's not something that I myself participate in a great way, but the toy market is very, very strong. As a matter of fact, just a couple of days ago, I got a note that there's a toy auction coming up. It's usually held in Woodstock for whatever reason. I don't know why I remember that, but there is a Woodstock toy auction that's held once a year. So you might want to, you know, if you're looking at obviously selling it, you might want to consider passing it to them and seeing what they could do with it. But it is interesting. Some of the old Chinese toys, like the one that was in your right hand there.
Yes, this one.
That is kind of an interesting thing. The Chinese antiques are very, very strong right now. So you might actually get a decent boost on that. They tend to like to collect, especially anything. And if that's as old as you think it is, and I certainly believe you, then it's going to have a strong collector value.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. So cool. Next, I have Lisa Sutcliffe, who has a charm bracelet. Lisa, feel free to unmute yourself. Hello.
Hi. Well, I actually have my mom's charm bracelet, which she's already passed down to me, and she's on the call too, as June. So, so it's a little hard to see.
Well, that's a good angle there.
So when she left Australia to travel the world in 1956, I was trying to get it where, yeah, this is tough. In 1956, she traveled around and collected various charms. And the nice thing about them, I think there's 28 silver charms. So, but there's some that have some motion in them. So some of my favorites are the Noah's Ark, which, let me see if I can find it here. There it is. So Noah's Ark, which opens up so that you can see there's some animals in there.
Oh my goodness, wow.
And there's another one that's kind of a spinning item that it spins, and then you see it says happy birthday when you spin it.
Oh
and things that she collected on her travels through various countries, and then England, and then to Canada. So
well, you'll be very happy to hear that charm bracelets are actually coming back in vogue. So what is happening with them is that obviously people are taking the charms off, and the ones that you have, they're called 3D charms, three-dimensional charms, which are mostly on there. Whoever put this charm bracelet together didn't go cheap. She obviously knew her stuff, and she bought very good charms. The two-dimensional ones, the ones that are flat, for example, they're not as highly desirable. But I just saw all the charms on there. Every single one of those on there is a good charm. They're all going to be marked somewhere 925. So the 925 sterling. More than likely, the chain that you're holding up, it has a safety chain on it.
yes, it does.
Near the clasp on that, you'll probably find a mark on there. When you're bored someday, just check it out, flip it over underneath. There'll be a 925 mark, or you might just see sterling silver, or you could see what's called a British hallmark, which will look like a lion in a square box. So those things all make it highly collectible. And she's got, you said 28 charms. Did I get that right?
I think 28. Yeah, and then she's got some little
Yeah, and again, those are all highly collectible charms. Now, if you ever do find one, and I have seen a couple in 18 karat gold, they're worth an absolute fortune.
I did have a question. It's, as you can see, it's not cleaned. And
no, the answer is no. I know what you're going to ask.
Okay.
Never. And you know, I apologize to Julie. I should have mentioned this in my chat. If you have what you consider as an antique, or especially if it's a metallic antique, a gold or silver coin or something, do not clean it. If you have old paper money, try and find a little plastic sheet like this that you can put it in just to protect it. Whatever you do, try not to fold it. Try not to touch it, especially with dirty hands. But the fact that your charm bracelet is a little tarnished adds patina to it. It also adds some age and some genuineness. I know you're never going to sell it. You're going to promise me you're never going to sell it.
Oh, I'm never going to sell it. No. And my girls, I have 2 girls, and they already love it and want it.
Excellent. That's what I want to hear. If you do want to kind of protect it, find an old Burke's box with some cotton batting in and just set it down in there so it doesn't get banged up anymore.
Mm-hmm.
A few nicks in that are only going to add to its patina, and that's perfectly fine.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
You've inspired me, Lisa. I have my grandmother's charm bracelet at home that I sometimes get out and look at. So I'll have to go home and peek at what you've said there, John. Thank you for that.
Also, if my mom just wants to give a wave.
Oh, yes, June, wave to us. Take yourself off mute and say hi, June. That is your bracelet after all. Are you there? Are you there, my dear?
You might be too shy.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you are. Hi, June. Hi, I see the wave. Hi. Lovely bracelet. Thank you for sharing. Okay, next up we have Gail. And Gail, I have you down for a picture and then a watch fob. Would you like to take yourself off mute, Gail, and you could show John your goodies?
I don't know how I'm going to show it because I'm on an iPad and I don't have anything that you're talking about. But if I
yeah, we can see. Yeah, just a little bit lower. There you go. There you go. Little bit lower. No. Oh, you're looking at the one on the picture?
Yeah, the picture.
Okay, a little bit lower. There you go. A little bit to the left, maybe. Perfect. There you go.
It's on the, it has 1868 Raphael, and it was my mom and dad had it, that I assume they got it around the time they were married in 1930 in Nova Scotia, and it's called the Turnkey. Do you know anything about it, John?
I'm just jotting this down. The Turnkey, and the painter, the artist was?
Raphael.
I've heard of the artist. I haven't heard of this painting. Is there any documentation on the back side of it?
No, unfortunately, all Mom put on it was, for me, the Turnkey by Raphael. It didn't say where she got it or anything about it.
Okay.
It's just, you know, it's just a picture that I loved, and when we were married and moved here, Mom and Dad let me have it.
I love the subject matter in the painting, and the fact that it's 1868 Canadian. I mean, Canada was started in 1867, so
yeah,
I mean, it's obviously a very cool piece of Canadian history. I'm going to plead ignorant, the fifth on this one. But I'll tell you what, I jotted down the name. Let me do a little bit of research on that, and then I can get back to Julie with you on that. Is that okay?
Okay. Now, my other thing is just an interest that something you might be interested in. It is a watch fob. My dad was born in 1897. And in 1919, he was part of the 1918, the expeditionary force that went to Vladivostok from Halifax. And while Vladivostok, watch fob, the story is that this watch fob was made by a German prisoner of war. And as you'll see, it has 2 bullets in it and a Russian coin. I think it's really, really neat. It's
Now,
something that might be
Gail,
interesting.
can you show it to us?
Yeah.
We're seeing a picture of you and Emmett at the moment. I think your
hold on.
screen went off there.
Did.
If you touch your screen, you might come, there you go. Okay, you're back. So if you can just hold it. Oh, is it hanging on the wall? Oh, there it is. Okay, perfect.
I don't know whether you can see it or not.
Yeah, we can see it. Does that, it's hard, can you see it, John?
I'm just barely making it out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that is cool. Is there any way, Julie, you can make that on a bigger
Nicole,
screen?
can you put Gail on a spotlight for me? We'll put her on spotlight, John. So Gail, can you speak up for a minute and just speak up, Gail, and then that way Nicole should get you on a spotlight.
What, you don't want me on a spotlight. You want
Well,
this on
but your iPad, yes.
iPad.
I am seeing a full screen of the key fob. Does everyone else see a full screen of the key fob? No? Okay.
No, I only have the gallery, Nicole.
Oh, let's see, because I'm seeing it.
If you click her 3 dots and click pin, did that work?
When I do that, I see the full screen. Yeah. Nobody else can see, but I can see it at my end, the full screen. I'm not sure how else to, I'll do spotlight, see if that works.
There you go.
Oh,
that worked.
Okay.
That worked. Okay, Gail, that's perfect.
Well, Gail, that's extremely cool. I like that.
Isn't that neat? Yeah.
That is just unbelievable. Now, what would make it really spectacular, this would have gone on a pocket watch at one time, more than likely a sterling silver pocket watch. If you had that, that would really, really help it a lot. But that is a very cool, more than likely it's called war art, sometimes referred to as trench art. So when soldiers got really bored, whether they were either prisoners or whether they were just in a trench, which was World War I, they would make what's called trench art or prisoner of war art. They would just sit around. They often took coins like this and they would carve something called love tokens on them and put them in things like this. This is a really cool part of your family's history. I like it a lot.
Yes. And my dad never ever talked anything about being in the war. And it's very, very difficult to get anything out of him. And I'm just so sorry to find out how he got this from. We've had different stories when he was in Vladivostok, but how he got in possession of this, I have no idea.
Well, and again, that goes back to the point that I was trying to make earlier in my chat of when you do pass things down to the generation under us, if you are going to pass something down, pass down the story, whether you write it down, whether you somehow record it, because that is a fantastic piece of history. And you'll often find that soldiers, especially for whatever reason, World War I, they rarely would like to discuss the war at all. World War I was a horrific war on every account. It was up close, it was personal, and it was just horrible. Not that that makes World War II any much better. It was certainly horrible. But the fact that that came at the end of World War I, which, as you know, ended in 1918, that is clearly a handmade object, which makes it really, really cool. But what it, again, make it fantastic is if it had the pocket watch attached to it. It would have been an inscription on the back of the pocket watch.
I've got an old pocket watch put away somewhere. I'll look and see if there's anything on it. And
if you can, if there's nothing on the back of it, more than likely there might be an inscription inside on the cover.
Okay.
Be extremely careful if you decide to open that, because it could be some interesting information. Sometimes people would put information in the back of a pocket watch, like where it came from, who owned it, what year they were born, etc. All that is fantastic history to me.
But in those days, at that age, like my dad lived to be 106. He died in 2003. So we had lots of times to talk to him, and he had pictures of Vladivostok which he showed, but he never talked too much about what it was. I mean, he felt badly because he hated to say he was in the war because he never shot a gun.
Well, and again, it's history, and it's, that I would love to know the story behind that, because I'm sure that it has a great story. It's 103 years old, and imagine the story behind it. It would have been nice to know.
Yeah.
Mhm. Gail,
Okay.
that's amazing to hear your dad was 106. That's amazing.
Yeah. He
So we have
was.
many more years to enjoy your company, which I'm happy to hear.
Oh, heaven's sake.
That
All
is a
right.
fantastic item. I really enjoyed seeing that. Thank you.
Very cool. Helena, we have fabric tapestry from you. Are you there, Helena? Can you take yourself off mute?
Yes, I'm here with my husband Sam, and the tapestry is like 6 feet, almost 7 foot wide. So we didn't want to have to bring it in this room. So I do have a photo of it. I did send you a photo. I don't know if people will be able to see it.
Do you know what country it's from?
No.
It
Passed down to you from somebody in your family?
No, I bought it at the antique market on Lakeshore and near Young Street
Like,
about 40 something years ago.
okay. So 1980-ish sort of time. Does that ring a bell with you?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the story that the antique dealer told you?
It's a tapestry. Somebody wants to sell it. And
Okay.
I bought it.
was like,
Seems like a good story.
I bought it without the frame that is in it now.
Okay.
But the frame that came with it is behind the frame I purchased.
Okay. Then is there any documentation on the frame on the other side at all?
No.
Nothing at all on the front?
No.
No. Okay. So tapestries are very, very popular. They're very strong, especially in Europe. I do have somebody that I can recommend that you take this to. It's not my area of expertise. All I do know is that on occasion when I have come across them, especially if it's a size that your wife is saying, that's a good size one. It's a case of what's bigger is better in that market. So
John, I know the photo was upside down, gang. I'm
Doesn't matter.
sorry, but I have opened it on my screen here. I'm not sure if I can make it any bigger, but that at least I know it's upside down. Sorry.
yeah. You know, Julie, this would be a good item for Jed to get his eyes on. He knows this stuff very well. So
Okay.
pass along Jed's information to these lovely people and they'll
Okay.
get a good idea. It sounds like you're going to do okay on that, sir, though.
oh, okay. It's beautiful. It's very detailed. It's amazing how they can
I
do
love the
something.
subject matter. I just love it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all music. Yeah.
Here's a better photo. I still can't flip it, but oh, there we go. Oh, hold on. There we go. Look, there it is. There it is. Okay. And I can zoom a little bit, I think. I don't know if that helps everybody to see it a little bit better, but
It's a nice piece, eh, Julie?
it is beautiful. And you know what, Helena and Sam, I will get you Jed's contact information, and I have made a note here. I will send it off to you, okay?
Thank you so
There's
much.
a plus sign. There's a plus sign on top there. How about?
I know I'm trying to get rid of my controls, but my controls don't want to go away here. Let me try one more time. Yeah, it's hiding under there for some reason. There we go. Okay, let me see here.
Yeah,
There we go. It is a little pixelated at this point, but it gives you a better idea of what it is.
It's
Yeah, it's not English. French, Italian. Yeah, Jed.
I will pass your information on, gang. Thank you for sharing. Love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question about Leica camera.
Like German cameras, yes, they're very collectible right now.
Very collectible.
Yes, they are, especially the older ones.
I bought one about 60 years ago.
Yeah, that could be very strong. There is an auction house I can recommend that specializes in just cameras. Again, I can pass that information to Julie if you like, but yeah, like a camera, virtually every other camera is not worth anything because people use these things nowadays for everything.
Yeah.
But the Leica German camera is something that's definitely prized by collectors.
I have several of them, several.
Well, it sounds like you're taking your wife out for a nice dinner then.
Curbside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of the camera has about half a dozen lenses with it, like wide lens, color lens and white, you name it, they have it.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, do a little homework for yourself when you get some time. Go online, try and track down, some of the information you can find, put together a list of what you have. And as I say to people in this business, do as much research and homework as you can. It goes back to our basics. The more homework you do, the better prepared you are. So when the day comes, you have to make a decision, then at least you're fully armed up here with all the information you have about your items.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, guys. All right, moving on next, I have Sandra Devereaux. I'm excited about this one. Sandra has a letter from Sir Winston Churchill. Sandra, have you taken yourself off mute? Hanya, is Sandra here? I don't see her. Do you see her, Hanya? No, okay. All right, Sandra, if we've missed you, I'm gonna circle back to you in case maybe you got cut off. Kathy Wally has a black Wedgwood teapot cream and sugar set in the mid to late 1800s. Kathy, are you there? Can you take yourself off mute?
I am. Can you
Hi.
hear me? Hi.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Now this teapot, it belongs to my husband's mother, who got it from her mother, his grandmother, and he seems to think that it was his great-grandmother's. So his grandmother, she came over to Canada from Liverpool, England, when she was like 7 years old. Now her birth date would have been the very late 1800s. And so we're thinking that maybe it, I'm gonna hold it up in a minute. We're thinking maybe it's around the late 1800s. It's a Wedgwood, and I'll hold it up. I don't know if you can, there's a real pretty design, like a Roman, I don't know if you can see that.
Come back a little bit, maybe, Kathy. We can, oh, there, that's good, that's good.
And they go all the way around. And I've taken the lid off of it because I didn't want it to fall off, but the lid is really pretty too. Like it's got a little flower in the middle and then the petals around.
Kathy, if you hold it upside down on the bottom, is there a mark on the bottom of it?
Yes, there's it says the Wedgwood, and it says made in England, and there's numbers, because I've got a creamer and a sugar as well, but the number is 20, I think it says 24 or something on the bottom of the teapot. I think that says 24. And then like there's a little cream, and the design is the same on it. It goes all the way around. And each piece has a different number on the bottom.
It's 24 for sure.
So it says 24 on the teapot, and the teapot's about 4 inches high.
Okay.
And then the creamer is, it says number 30 on it, and it's 3 inches. And then the little sugar bowl, it's exactly the same. It's a whole set. I don't think that they ever used it because
They look like to me like they're in excellent condition. You kept them very well.
They've never ever been used, I don't think.
Dusty, but that's
A little bit dusty. And then there's a number on the bottom of the sugar bowl, and it's 36. But other than, there's something else written there. Oh, it says made in England, yeah, Wedgwood, and each one has its own number. And the little, the sugar bowl, it's got the same little lid as the teapot.
Yeah, it's a very nice collectible item. I hope you have somebody that you can pass that down to, because that's a very nice thing.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, it's very nice. I've often seen the light blue, but I've never seen them that dark. So that's definitely something that's a little rare.
although you're saying black, but it's got like a hue of like a really deep olive green to me. I don't know. My husband says it's black, but I can, yeah. But anyway, it's I really like the pretty pictures on it.
It's in excellent shape. You've taken care of it. I insist you keep taking care of it and find somebody in your family to pass the story down to. As I said, pass the story down.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, John. And the second last item we have is Stu Black. Are you there? You have a concertina that you'd like to show John and our guests. Stu, are you there? Hanya, is Stu?
Sorry, I don't see him here, but I do have the picture, which I'd like to show. You sent it on the 8th. Hold on one second, though.
Well, Hanya's looking for that, John. This tea set that we just saw, you mentioned that it comes in light blue. Is the light blue one that has all of the white
It's
raised?
much later, yeah.
Yes,
you see that all the
okay.
time. It's much later.
Okay.
That lady's stuff is much earlier. I actually think she thinks it's late 1800s. I kind of sense it might be a bit earlier than that.
Oh, okay. Cool. Because I know my dad has some of my great-grandmother's blue with the white relief on it, and I've always admired it, although I do not need any more stuff in my house, as you're saying, but
I'm the king of stuff, so yeah.
Hanya, did you find that picture, my dear?
I did, yes. So this is from one of our members, Stu, and he said that he has submitted an unusual musical instrument. It's a concertina, a hexagon-shaped squeeze box that his dad used to play. So I will show you, he sent a couple of different shots.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Do you know where it's made? Is there any stamp on it?
He didn't give any other information. I emailed him at the beginning of the session because I knew I didn't see him here, but must have got busy with something. And it also has this amazing box that it's obviously stored in.
Oh, they kept the box. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Somewhere it'll say where it's made. If it's made in the USA, I'd be very interested in seeing that. That is very cool. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably 1920s, 30s, but I'd like to know what country it was made in, especially if it was made in the States. Some of those older US instrument things can be highly collectible.
Okay, great. I'll let him know and find out where it was made. Yeah.
Thanks, Hanya. I did manage to find the image of the Winston Churchill. Now, I know that person is not here with us, but just because I thought it was pretty cool to show, there it is, John. The submission just said to her grandfather or great-grandfather, a personalized letter from Winston Churchill. So there is the outside with the stamp, and there is the inside. Can everybody see that okay?
Okay, this is a very cool item. Now, and thankfully you sent me this a couple of days ago, so I had some time to do a little bit of forensic research on it. I'm trying to get you see, everybody see the postage cancel mark on the stamp? It says, what I'm convinced is December, and I'm thinking it's 1964. Winston Churchill passed away on January 25th, 1965. He was 90 years old. Now, if you can go to the letter, Julie, you'll see that he's wishing somebody thanks for best wishes on his 90th birthday. So this letter would have been written very, very shortly before he passed away. I'm thinking about a month before he passed away, just based on my mathematics.
Pretty cool.
It is a birthday letter, so they don't, in terms of value, I mean, it's a great letter. I would hate to think that this person's going to sell this, but he would issue thousands of these, and he would do them every year. So there was a lot of birthday thank letters that went out. There aren't that many this late in his life. As I said, according to my math, I think that this was written probably in December of 1964, and he passed away about a month later. So it would have been one of his last letters that he'd written. I did research some of Winston Churchill's autographs. It is clearly a Winston Churchill autograph. His signature tends to go for reasonably good money just at around, surprisingly enough, the wartime. There was recently a letter that he'd written to Roosevelt in 1940 with his concerns about what Hitler was doing in Europe, and basically he was fearing that the Battle of Britain was about to start, which it obviously had by then. And he was worried that if he didn't get U.S. support very, very soon, that Britain would fall to the Nazis in about a year's time. That letter went for about $4,000. So that was a very interesting letter. So this person who sent this in today, I want to thank them because it got my historical juices flowing. And this, again, is what I love about doing this, is you learn so much. So this is a great letter. I hope it's framed, and I think it is. And just pass on to the owner that it was probably written about a month before Winston Churchill passed away. Very great man.
Awesome, thank you. Next up, I have Joanne Walden. Joanne, what did you have to show John?
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, I have a few different pieces, but it's just more a general question. My husband's parents had a log cabin, and they collected antiques, and the whole cabin is filled with antiques, filled with old everything you can imagine, and we're keeping it that way. It's almost like a little bit of a museum, but it's our cottage now. But there is a lot of different dishes and things, and thankfully they did leave the stories for a lot of the pieces, and we have documented that. But then there's a lot of other pieces that we have that we can't keep everything. So I'm just wondering, with dishes, like old dishes and things, how you figure out whether they're of any value or not. And this is one that we have. Have no idea how old it is.
Old dishes are really tough right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Older teacups can be, for whatever reason, the COVID pandemic has been good to some antiques and has been not so kind to other antiques. COVID has been extremely kind to smaller collectible antiques because people like to have little things around and to do the research. The problem is with big dishes is nobody really wants to buy and display them anymore. People want to go in the kitchen, they want to cook a meal, and they want to basically throw everything out at the end of the meal. Things like that are really tough. If you can find a place to display them, and that one that you held up there was, it would look nice on a top shelf, but in terms of monetary value, it's not going to be strong.
Okay, so is there anywhere, so how do you know though, for sure that you're not getting, like I said, we can't keep everything. So we have to...
What I suggest doing in a situation like that is, obviously, when it comes to things like that, look on the back, look for any kind of a hallmark, and then do a little bit of research on there. Most of this stuff, if it's old, is going to be made in England. England cranked out tons and tons of pottery and basically baking stuff because they've been around for centuries. You'll often see, if you see a made in Germany and it looks really old and it's a figurine, that's going to be different. That's going to be worth some money.
Yeah, this one's Germany.
Yeah, so something like that is going to be a little bit better than an English thing, because Germans don't make quite as much, and they also made some very high quality stuff. What you can also do is, and I fully respect your comment, is we can't keep everything, is nicely box it up. And again, I can recommend a couple of auction houses that I fully entrust, and send them to them. And this sounds terrible, but let the audience figure out what you have. There are some cases where sometimes I get so much stuff, I don't know what to do with it. So I would rather let the audience or the auction audience figure out what I have and let them bid on it. And then, you take your chances, as they say in Newfoundland, So sometimes you get a nice check and you're surprised. Other times you're like, I can't believe that sold for this. But if you're at the point where you kind of want to downsize, you do want to get rid of stuff, you're pretty convinced it's not worth a lot, but it's taking up a lot of room, that's the route that I advise.
Okay, so you could share or recommend an auction house of some sort?
I can, yes. I'll let Julie know. I always let her know some of the places that I trust and some of the people that I believe in.
Okay.
When I've made a note for you, so I will send that on to you when I get that information from John.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And the second last item I have is St. John. St. John, if you'd like to take yourself off mute. Are you still there, St. John? There you are. There you go.
Yeah. Hi. Yes.
Hi.
Well, actually, I didn't bring anything particularly. When I think back, I know you mentioned war items. I have a trunk which belonged to my uncle in World War One. He was out in India and Mesopotamia. Actually, he was killed in Mesopotamia. An interesting thing, it has a curved top. And it was a curved top because as an officer, his trunk was always on the top, not underneath somebody else's, which I thought was an interesting aspect. And the other thing I have of his was his sword. It was made by Wilkinson. I did look online, actually, they're quite prolific, but just a couple of old interesting things that I have.
Well, those are interesting, sir. And I'm fascinated by World War I, especially because my grandfather fought for the British in World War I. So I find that collectibles from World War I to be kind of close and dear to my heart. On your foot, it's actually called a foot locker that would have been assigned. Is his name and regiment stamped in black on it?
It's on the inside.
It's on the inside. Okay.
On the inside, yeah.
And when you acquired it, was his uniform inside that?
You know, I'm trying to track down in the family where other stuff is.
Okay.
But I did inherit actually his letters that he wrote home while he was in the forces.
Mm-hmm.
And my summer project, my COVID project, was to transpose them into a Word document, add some historical background and photographs and maps of where he was. And I finished up with a little book which I got printed, 130 pages.
Excellent. Do you know if you acquired his World War I service medals? There will be 3 medals. One will have a guy riding a horse. Another one will be kind of a goldy color.
Those 3 medals, I'm trying to track down.
Okay.
I have a
when you do find those medals, if you look on the side, will be his name, his rank, and his unit number. If you can find them, that's definitely a family heirloom that you should hold on to.
Yes,
on the sword, he most likely was in the cavalry, obviously. I would love to see that. So if you do find a picture of that, pass it on to Julie. I would like to see that.
Yes, okay. The other thing I'm trying to track down is actually he won the Sword of Honor in one of the training colleges, and that's in a silver scabbard.
Oh, that's very interesting. I would love to see a picture of those.
I'd love to see a picture or even track it down where it is.
Well, good luck with
I think it's in somebody's attic.
Thank you.
I spend a lot of time in basements and attics, believe me.
Thank you, St. John. And Hanya, I know you have a little bit of money. Would you like to just show John quickly the money that you have there? We weren't sure. We've had so many of you put in requests for John to speak. We weren't sure at the beginning. So Hanya found a few little things that she had at home in case we had a few minutes. So we're just at time. So we can show your little goodies there, Hanya.
That would be great. We're just retrieving them because I didn't think we were going to have time. But I'm excited because at the beginning, John showed a picture of an old $20 bill, and my husband has preserved these things. Or where did they come from? Your dad? Huh?
Hi, Jay.
John.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks.
So we have this guy, 20.
So that's a Canada, obviously $20 bill. If you can find a plastic sleeve, kind of akin to something like this, if not, there you go. You can also just put that in that, and it'll keep it flat. Now, that $5 you just held up, can you flip over the other side?
Yeah, there's 2 in here. So
there'll be 2 in there. One will be a 1954 $5 bill.
Oh, there's more.
Oh, you're rich, Hanya.
So that's a 1937 $5 bill. And on the other side, yeah. So that one definitely deserves to be in plastic. It's clearly worth more than $5. And the other one you have in there is a 1954. It'll have Queen Elizabeth on it as well.
John, you're amazing. I don't even know how you just looked at it for a second.
That one right there. So those somebody's put together a nice old $5 bill collection for you. That is very cool. Now, just for interest's sake, the one series before that, the 1935 $5 bill, is extremely rare. So you missed it by 2 years. The 2 years before, yeah, that's a 1937 called a Gordon Towers. Also deserves to be in a plastic. Yeah, beautiful note.
And $2 bill.
1954 Canadian $2 bill. Now, if you look up at the serial number, you'll see a little star. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, that's called a replacement $2 bill. So that means that the serial number had come to the end of the series. So that makes that note a little bit rarer than just an ordinary $2 bill.
So we got a couple of them.
Yep.
And that's the back.
That deserves to be in plastic as well.
Now, what she wants to know, John, is can she retire?
Yes, you can retire, but not on that $2 bill.
Oh, darn. We tried, Hania. We tried.
And this last one here, this is $1.
That's a Gordon Tower. That's in excellent condition.
Yeah.
That's in literally what we would call a mint state condition, $1, 1937. It's still crisp for being a note that's about 90 years old, so that's great. Stop doing that and put it in plastic. Excellent.
Sorry.
Now, Hania, you had a little Bible. I know you couldn't find it, but could you just describe it to John? I thought it was such a cool item.
I know, it's about 2 inches by 2 inches, this tiny little Bible, and I think it did say 1907, and someone had signed it right on the inside cover. And I've searched high and low, and I'm really upset with myself that I couldn't find it for today. But I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I have seen them. A lot of people would put them in their dresser table at night because they would just flip through it really quickly. You know, read a verse or two, but they would always be very, very small.
Tiny,
yeah, they weren't too popular amongst the men. However, in World War I, as an interesting aside, there was a mini Bible issued as in the military kit for soldiers. It doesn't sound like yours is military, but they did catch on a little bit.
Okay, but not of any value.
Not particularly, no.
No.
Unless you read the whole thing.
Thank you, Hania. John, I had another question come in through chat. John, is there any value in Waterford crystal? That's from Marlene.
It had its day in the 90s. It's definitely weaker. And again, it's a generational thing. No one under us wants to clean or collect any kind of crystal. And this also goes for silverware. The generation under us doesn't want to clean sterling silverware, which makes it kind of good and bad. It's good because the price of silver is much higher, but it's bad because nobody really wants it anymore. When it comes to Waterford crystal, there is a very, very skinny market on it. If you do have somebody in your family that has a passion for it, I would urge you to pass it on and hope for a better day.
Okay, and then one final question. I'm not sure who it's from. Nicole, maybe you can help me here. Somebody has a full sheet of $2 bills, uncut, from the Bank of Canada, and they are in a glass frame. Oh, that's from Marlene Thompson.
Yeah, actually, these are very cool. So the Bank of Canada issued these at the end of the run when they went into the toonie and the loonie. The Bank of Canada would issue uncut sheets, which people usually framed up and put in their office. Very, very cool. As long as they're in perfect condition, they usually trade for about 3 times the value. So on those particular sheets, if I have my memory right, there's roughly 40 $2 bills in that frame. So you're looking at about $240 worth of notes in that particular frame. So that was a good trade.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, gang, this has been so fun. And I know, John, you are so kind. You never disappoint. I could listen to you all day. It's amazing. I hope everybody enjoyed this presentation as much as I did. And I want to thank our guests. Thank you, Joanne, for the applause for John. That's amazing. I want to thank Rock Mosa and Niagara Falls for being here today. We are the 3 communities. We are trying to bring as much information and joy and togetherness and community that we can to our members. Even while we're separate, we want to try and feel together. So I thank you for that. I thank you for joining us. And I just, before we go, I want to give you a few more updates about what's coming. Hanya has an amazing talk this Thursday on the history of weather, and it's going to be through Zoom, Thursday, March 11th at 1 p.m. If you need assistance on how to register, you can contact myself, Hanya, or Kelly. We will all try and get you set up and registered for that if you're interested. Oakville is hosting a pickleball talk. If you are a pickleball fan and Oakville are crazy about pickleball, we have nationally ranked champion Stephanie Lane from the US, who will be doing a live Q&A on March 23rd at 7 p.m. It's not an afternoon event, it is an evening event. And registration is absolutely required because we anticipate a sellout. We have a Let's Talk Ticks, and the trouble with ticks is going to be on April 13th at 1:30. If you're a gardener or a hiker and want to know how to stay safe and be well and avoid ticks at all costs, we have a great presentation April 13th. And then April 27th, Nicole has secured an incredible speaker. His name is Jamie Drake. And he is going to talk about the wide world of percussion instruments. So that is April 27th at 1:30. Any of the staff, Nicole, myself, Hanya, or Kelly, can help you get registered. We will be sending out more details. I thank you so much for being here. Thank you, John. It was amazing. I loved spending my afternoon with you all, and I hope you enjoyed it with us as well. So have a wonderful Tuesday.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Julie,
everybody.
for putting this together. You did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, pass on your stories, people.
That's right. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye.
Julie.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.